Ciao everyone and welcome to a new episode of Voices of Italy Beyond La Dolce Vita. This is an episode that comes after a pretty long summer break, and that has given me the inspiration to bring you new, authentic, cliche-free Italian stories. And timing couldn't be more perfect, frankly, to tell you about a quintessentially Italian phenomenon that can either charm or confuse visitors. I'm talking about what I'm gonna call the Great August Shutdown, just to make it sound a little cooler. And it's something that it's especially weird for non European people. When you come to Italy, especially during, summer vacation, and you see all those chiuso per ferie signs plastered everywhere on store and public places. And once pretty loud and busy and bustling cities and towns turn into serene, almost surreal, complete deserted places. Well, it's not just a cute quirk. This is a tradition that goes back years back in our history and yeah, just has deep cultural roots and surprisingly significant modern day impact in Italian society. Is it just a charming testament of our love for il dolce far niente? Or is it an outdated habit that it's holding us back? Let's talk about it. Let's unpack the legend of Italy's August exodus and see if it's finally starting to change. Italy is one of the most iconic countries in the world. But what does Italy mean to the world? What does it mean to you?
Buongiorno.
Pizza,
Ciao Bella.
Michelangelo.
spaghetti.
Mafia, Dolce Vita.
My name is Alessia, I'm Italian, and this is Voices of Italy, the podcast that peels back the layers of the Instagram perfect Italy to reveal everyday stories of authentic, surprising, and messy Italian life. You probably know, or you have heard, or someone told you that one of the big nice things of living in Italy is that with the few exceptions of Milan and Rome, we can all still enjoy the pleasure of a pretty slow paced, very localized life. And even in our biggest cities, most people can walk anywhere they need to go, basically. And that's an absolutely normal thing, not a privilege that only people living in a certain area have. Of course, yes. This is not extended to absolutely every place, but really, I'm talking about something that is normal for us Italians. I have just found out that two of the top three most walkable cities in Europe are Italians, and Milan is the first in that top three list, and my dear Turin is the third. That was something that made me realize okay, maybe it's not that normal. It's not something that everybody around the world gets to experience. But August is that time of the year when this one nice thing, one objectively really nice thing we have, just stops functioning. Just a little more than a couple of weeks ago, getting my bar coffee was a leap in the dark when I had to walk around and see who, if anyone, around here is open for me to get a coffee, just a simple espresso. And my number one favorite breakfast bar uh, here in the city, which is literally 3 minutes of walking away from my apartment, was closed for an entire month. Same for my favorite focacceria. Yes, I have one that is really behind the corner. Again, 3 minutes away from my house, also closed for over a month. And the same is true for anything from dry cleaners to fruit vendors. Really, wake me up when August ends, Green Day would say if they were Italians. It's a scene that plays out across Italy every single summer. If you're not Italian, it can be a little bit of a shock, but for us, it's just, well, that's August. Like everything stops. Kids stop going to school, people close their businesses for vacation, public offices are closed, anything really, except for the big international chains. Like you're not going to see McDonald's closing in August. Okay, let's be reasonable. That's not what I'm saying. But really, especially the small, medium businesses still follow this kind of seasonal working time. And until very recently, I thought that this was pretty much an Italian thing, but I think other countries in Europe have a very similar kind of summer pause where pretty much everything stops. Like in Spain and in France, I think the situation is very similar, but definitely it's particularly strong in Italy. And you can get a pretty specific idea when you see how many people actually go on vacation and book their vacation during the summer. And domestic tourism is pretty high in Italy. And that's why, like, something like 32% of all summer overnight stays are concentrated in August alone, according to Eurostat, throughout the year. And maybe the number doesn't sound big right away, but that's like double the EU average, according to the same statistic. And not only that, it's almost triple than Germany's peak. Just to give you an idea of how big the gap is, how many people go on vacation during the summer, which explains why all our shops are closed during the summer because everybody is going to the beach. And at the same time, I'm not just talking about, shops. I'm talking about most companies, public offices, healthcare services, and even politics take a long break until early September. Very shocking, but okay. There's this video, oh my God, of Sergio Marchionne, who was the late former CEO of Fiat, who was really shocked to find empty desks and deserted offices when he took over the lead of the company in the middle of summer 2004. And there is this pretty popular video that you can find online with him telling the story of finding out that everybody was on vacation and he just didn't think that that was justified by anything business wise because he was pretty, how can I say, non-Italian probably in his business sense because of course studied and worked with North Americans for a pretty significant part of his life. But why August also, you must wonder, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be listening. I doubt that even most Italians know why, but it isn't just a modern thing. And I'm not really one of those people obsessed with ancient Rome, with the Roman Empire, I promise. But in this case, even if it sounds like a cliche, it's not. Our story really begins in ancient Rome with none other than the Emperor Octavian Augustus, who was essentially the guy that started something called Feriae Augusti, which literally means August holidays. These were basically days of rest after the intense harvest season, and it was also used as a time to celebrate the agricultural labor with banquets and popular festivities. The very word Ferragosto, which is an Italian national holiday on August 15th, it represents sort of the peak of the summer holidays, and it comes directly from this ancient term, Feriae Augusti, Ferragosto. It was a primordial form of collective holiday, let's say, even in the ancient Rome. And, even the word feriae in itself is not is nothing other than the current Italian word ferie is the same thing. It's for literally your annual holidays from work or from whatever your duties are. And it's different from the generic term vacanze, which means instead holidays. Ferie really people associated with the big pause that I take usually during the summer. Now, you've heard me say many times now during the podcast that many ancient conventions and folklore aspects over the centuries blended with the Catholic traditions, like when we talked about the traditions of Carnevale celebrations. And August 15th, Ferragosto, is another of these cases, as this holiday coincides with the Feast of the Assumption of Mary, which is theoretically one of the most important religious holidays of the year for Catholics. But it actually started with a imperial Rome decree to celebrate harvest, and eventually it just found a natural home within our deeply Catholic culture once again. But actually, August 15th, today it's more perceived by most people for its social meaning and value rather than for its religious one. Maybe also because of the most recent developments involving this holiday in our history. That's because in the 20th century, during the fascist regime, and precisely 1931, the famous treni popolari di Ferragosto were introduced. It literally means popular Ferragosto trains. These were basically special discounted train tickets designed to encourage mass tourism and allow families to enjoy excursions outside the cities. I don't know, do healthy things for your healthy family. I don't know. And it was just a clever fascist way to promote national identity and leisure, in a nice, perfect looking family. And it just cemented August as the designated month for collective holidays, basically. And it was in the post war economic boom that, even more so, most Italian companies also, like big industrial giants like Fiat, that were simply closing their doors in August to allow people this reasonable summer pause. Your company might just close for close to 4 weeks, and so here you go. That's your PTO for the year because the company is not operating at all. And obviously, that solidified the tradition, making it almost annoying, but we'll come back to that later. But another aspect that contributed to this was the sheer summer heat, which, let's be honest, can make work almost impossible in many regions. I'm such a big proponent of that. I hate summer heat. And especially in Italy without air conditioning, which is quite a privilege, I have to say, in our society, even in today for most people. And let's not forget our school holiday schedule that, unlike many other countries, really has school closed from June to September in average. And for families with children, this naturally kind of forces vacation choices largely into July and August, like that you really don't have a choice since you probably cannot afford a nanny or even daycare if you're the average Italian family. So here you go, vacation time is picked. And so this tradition, as it turns out, is a perfect storm of history, religion, government initiatives, industry practices, climate, if you're like me, and family logistics. The perfect Italian recipe. A lot of our stuff actually work accordingly to all those factors, more or less. But I'm not telling you this just to make you the more informed person in the room when you're Italian or someone in the room is Italian and someone asks, "Oh, but is it true that in Italy they close everything in August?" Or someone that says Italians really enjoy their vacations because they close for a whole month in the summer and you can add some really quirky historical details. No, that's not the main purpose of this podcast. And I'm not telling you this just to save your summer vacation. So next time, maybe you can go in another time of the year that it's also more enjoyable because there's a more pleasant temperature and things are a little cheaper. And you can maybe also visit something other than Venice, Rome, Florence, and Milan for a change and maybe have a better vacation in Italy outside the summer. No, that's not why I'm telling you this either. Uh, it's just that other than making lots of our towns and cities a little more boring to visit, this massive August shutdown also comes with some considerable economic and social consequences. And it's something that I didn't even know about until very recently. Gianfranco Polillo, who is a former undersecretary of the Ministry of the Economy and Finance in Italy, once estimated that the slowdown in productive activities in August costs Italy the entire point of its annual national GDP. That's a huge number. This general absenteeism can really hit the country's productivity hard. And it does. I shouldn't say it can. It does already. Think about it. Interrupted supply chains. That means that if one company or department stops, its supplies and clients have often to also slow down and stop as well. And when you have reduced services, which is very common in the summer with public offices, banks, and many commercial activities operating, like maybe just limiting their hours or closing entirely, again, that slows everything down, whatever is going on, basically. And just logistically, there are more delays affecting shipments and deliveries, often pushing them back by weeks. And there's just a loss of continuity in everything, projects, anything that requires restarting a little bit once you're back, in September. And that can just heavily weigh on the general productivity. And for the businesses that stay open or that try to remain open, maintaining productivity can be quite challenging because the clients or suppliers are closed, people is not working, is on vacation, potentially leading customers to just prefer alternatives to go to the big city where everything is still going on. And if this sounds like minor issues, the final blow is mass tourism. There are even concerns that Italy's reliance on foreign mass tourism during this period could make it just overly dependent on this sector. Over tourism is such a big topic right now, everywhere in Italy, on the news all the time, where, of course, something that might cause a crisis is always the main topic on the news. But it is something that exists and it's silently transforming Italy into what some commentators have even called the European Thailand, referring to just a country solely and exclusively dependent on foreign mass tourism. Yes, because the numbers are showing that Italian industry has been in recession for over a year, and manufacturing is also in a bad shape. And at the same time, tourism and related services are always booming. So the feeling is that August will be the worst every year, even more. But I promise I'll just stop complaining. August in Italy doesn't only have haters. There are also proponents of the August pause, even though after everything I've said, my sound like a bit why? Well, people argue that a collective stop is more efficient. It prevents sporadic productivity up and downs and allows both employees and employers to really have a chance to truly disconnect from work. Because we both know this is the time of the year, everybody knows, okay, so just get ready for that pause. We all work around it because we know. So in many ways, it's all about our unique Italian way of life with we really want to disconnect. We really don't want to hear about work. But my friends, something is shifting. The rigid tradition of August holidays is slowly showing signs of decline. And I have to say, I'd like it to accelerate. After COVID, now we all say after COVID, oh my God, this is a thing. But anyway, after COVID, the increase of smart working, which is how Italians call work from home, like remote work, somehow we call it smart working, communication patterns are becoming more personalized and flexible because you don't really depend on a lot of the logistic factors that usually force you to go in a time or in another. There are recent surveys by Ipsos, which is a global market research company, and SWG, an Italian market research firm, that show that for the first time, preferences for July and August vacations are on pair, which is, I know it doesn't sound like a lot. It sounds like a small step for the world, but it's a giant leap for Italy. It's a significant change. That's never been the case, basically. And a lot of those who still go on holiday on August actually do so a little bit on obligation, not choice, often due to what we were saying before, employer policies or family reasons. And Istat, the National Italian Statistics Institute, its data are confirming this trend and are showing that there's a decrease of nearly 10 millions of tourist presences in August from 2000 to 2024. So the flexibility offered by companies, especially more in the digital sectors, of course, now allows also more people, including myself, thank God, to choose alternative months. But this is really a slow change. August still retains a symbolic pull, and many people still choose to leave simply to avoid staying in deserted cities where a lot of businesses are closed and maybe your friends are away and everybody's going on vacation, so you're going to be lonely and bored for a month. A lot of people really also do it for that reason. So it creates a little bit of a vicious cycle where shops close because cities are empty, and cities are empty because shops close. But sadly, this is not all. Broader economic difficulties are also impacting overall vacation plans. In 2025, according to investigations by consumer associations like Assoutenti and Codacons, almost 50% of Italians plan to forgo summer holidays. And of those, 54% and more attributed to lack of financial resources to even afford a vacation in the first place. The rising cost of living, stagnant wages, and increased prices for travel and really basic necessities are really making summer vacations for Italians in Italy a luxury that a lot of people can no longer afford. And this highlights a societal change where the right to rest, which is something that everybody should get, unfortunately crashes with financial restraints. And this has much to do with another of the hottest topics in Italian summers, literally and figuratively, the beach concessions, or as we call them in Italian, stabilimenti balneari, who are essentially private operators who manage stretches of public beach with exclusive rights to offer services and other amenities. If you've been in Italy, you've probably seen them, just rows of umbrellas and sunbeds perfectly lined up on the beach. Those are a dream or a nightmare for many Italians nowadays, because in 2025, even a simple beach day is becoming a luxury for us guys. Other cons, which is again an Italian consumer watchdog, reports that prices for sunbeds and umbrellas have jumped almost of 33% since 2019. A basic setup for one umbrella and two chairs on average will cost you over 200 euros per week, which for an average Italian, believe me, it's a lot of money. It's about 32 to 35 euros a day. In some hot spots, of course, even more. Like it can cost you over 100 euros. And if you go ultra luxury, even more. I'm not even talking about Costa dei Marmi, Costa Smeralda, etc. That's just another world. But that's not even what the controversy is all about. The true issue there is the concession system, because for decades, Italian beach licenses have been automatically renewed and often kept basically within the same families for generations, like a little empire, with little to no competition and laughably low fees that are paid to the state. We're talking about a few thousand of euros a year for businesses that turn over hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions. And the EU has already told Italy since 2006 to open these concessions to public bidding just to make it fairer. But governments keep delaying, afraid of angering the powerful balneari lobby. And meanwhile, in regions like Liguria and Emilia-Romagna, up to 70% of the coastline is completely privatized. And this means that really the public parts are really tiny, 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 ridiculously tiny, and often even neglected little corners of seaside. Activists call it the lungo muro, the long wall, because fences and barriers literally block people's view of the sea or people's access of the sea. There are groups like Mare Libero that are pushing back on this, and they're organizing some sort of protests where citizens simply put down their towels on beaches with expired licenses. Their message is simple. It's the beach is a public good. You're supposed to only rent it, and for some weird reason, the state is giving it to you for close to nothing, and you're being extremely shady about it too. And you're turning a public good into a privilege that a lot of people cannot afford. Other Mediterranean countries like Spain and Portugal have more strict rules, for example, to limit private concessions, protecting access, and ensure structures remain temporary. In Italy, instead, is still really a political fight. Legal loopholes and oops, we forgot, endless delays, nobody's fault. Parties from all sides really have done this. This is not something that, is particularly the current administration or the previous one or the one before. It's really just going on. But wrapping up to our original topic, more and more companies are now reevaluating their traditional Ferragosto closures, staying open to just maintain productivity and competitiveness, especially against other economies that are active year round, like the rest of the world. The challenge for Italy is to evolve, and many people really consider this part of their cultural identity. I cannot tell you how many people here really love the idea of going to the beach, going to the sea, and that's really what our idea associated with vacation. It's like almost one concept, it's very, very closely tied to our cultural identity at this point. And adapting to a more globalized world is not easy, also from that point of view. But what do you think? Is Italy's August shutdown a charming relic that defines our culture, or is it just time for a change? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do you have a personal experience with Italy's August shutdown for your vacation, for your university experience? If you're living here now, if you're Italian, connect with me on social media following Voices of Italy on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. Share your stories, your questions, your own takes on Italian culture. And remember that you can send voice notes to the podcast Instagram page or using SpeakPipe. You can find the link in my bio. And your voice note could be included in the episode next time. So if you're planning a trip to Italy, maybe consider exploring some of our incredible destinations in late June, no later than that. Early July, okay? It's a fantastic way to really go beyond La Dolce Vita and see a different Italy. That's all for this episode of Voices of Italy. Grazie mille, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Ciao!